Welcome to this Spyglass episode. This is kind of like the psychotrivia, but we're going to take more time to look into really practical tips and tricks that you can use to survive the upcoming holiday season. Because if you are anything like actually the vast majority of people who celebrate holidays from November till, the next 12 months from now, you're likely in a situation where you are at least invited and more or less expected to join family gatherings, family dinners, maybe even complete holidays that you spend with your relatives. And while sometimes that can be very nice, to see people you haven't seen in at least in a year or maybe even longer, to get back together and get back in touch, for many of us it is a huge source of stress. So in this Spyglass, we're going to look at practical, feasible tips and tricks that you can use to mix and match and find a way to make the whole holiday season and dealing with your family in general a bit more manageable. My name is Crystal Vogels, this is the Ship Psychology channel, and let's have a look at how to survive a large crowd of people that you don't want to be around. The holiday season is a wonderful time for rest, contemplation, and to reconnect with people that you've missed, that you haven't talked to in a while, and you want to rekindle that relationship. But the holidays are also a huge source of stress for the very simple reason that we feel compelled to spend it with people that we don't want to spend it with. Most particularly, family. We all know that the blood of the covenant runs thicker than the water of the womb, but our parents still want us to show up for that family dinner, and we are still expected to cooperate with aunts, uncles or cousins who we don't get along with. Well, they're your family, you have to forgive them, you have to give space. Yeah, and what about me? You say, what about me? Are they going to give me space? Because you just know that that one family member is going to make some nasty comment about you, about maybe your study, about the work that you do, your choice of partner. Perhaps they have nasty comments about someone you care about or a cause that you care about. And you already know, maybe even from experience, that this is going to be a huge mess. You're going to get angry, you're going to get upset, they are going to get upset, and it's just a train wreck waiting to happen. So what can you do to make that manageable for yourself? Well, the easiest answer, and I'm sure you've heard that already, someone has already told you, just don't go. Yeah, but it's not that easy, is it? Of course, you have a biological bond, so it feels almost unnatural to break with these people, even though they have done perhaps nothing but hurt you, or that might be intentional or unintentional. But even so, you'd rather not spend time with them, but cutting them out entirely is not an option. So how do you handle that situation? Well, before I give you a boatload of tips that you can pick and mix and match, find out what works for you and what works best in your situation with the people that you'll be dealing with, let's first have a look at what makes these things go off the rails so badly in the first place. It starts with the fact that you are not the only one who is nervous for this type of gathering. It may look like your relatives or your friends find it very easy to be around loads and loads of people and they feel comfortable there, but everyone is a bit on edge. Very simply, remember, we have 3 brains and they have a very different way of dealing with the situation. And when you go to a large group of people that is not your day-to-day clan, it's not your core family of your partner, your own children, it's not the core family or the core group of friends that you hang around with every day, you are entering a new, or at least not regular, social situation. And that gets you on edge. So what happens is that the social brain is very much on edge. And when they are on edge, they are all over the place. What if? What if things go wrong? What if I say the wrong things? What if I wear the wrong things? What if I gotta make strange remarks? Oh, remember that? Oh yeah. Oh God, Uncle Johnny made that strange remark the other day. That's gonna go wrong. Last year. Oh, remember that? That was so very, very wrong. And that is definitely going to happen again. There's no way that's not going to happen again. And oh God, but I'm not safe there. How do I get out of there? Is there anyone I like? Is there anyone who likes me? I don't even know that. And they're completely upset. In the meantime, your rational brain is trying to get a foot between the door and put things into perspective. Because your captain says, well, that remark that Johnny made was not even meant for you. Not only that, but this situation you're thinking about where everything went haywire last time, that didn't exactly went haywire. Just two people yelling exactly 2 sentences at each other, and after that it was pretty fun. After that we played some games, and it turned out to be a pretty good evening. But your first mate isn't listening. Your first mate is so wrought up with everything that can go wrong, because this is a situation, this new social situation, to them it is new, because your first mate has no horizon beyond a week. So anything that happened more than a week ago, people you haven't seen in more than a week, there's a very brief moment where you meet them again of, who are you again? And how are we? Are we good? Are we good? Yeah? Okay, we're good. Oh, yeah, nice seeing you. There's always that bit of hesitation. You may not even notice this when you have this with a friend you haven't seen in some time, you haven't spoken to in some time. But especially when it's people that you wouldn't normally choose to have in your inner circle, that apprehension is going to be a bit bigger, and it's going to take a bit longer for your first mate to decide, oh, okay, okay, we're good, yeah, sure, how are you doing? Yeah, okay, oh, cool, yeah. And you fall into the social niceties. So, especially leading up to the event, the week, because that's the span of your first mate's attention, they know something's coming sooner than that, because your captain has noted it on your calendar. Look, we have Christmas dinner with the family, Christmas Day. Oh boy, says the first mate. I'm not looking forward to that, so initially you're not thinking about that too much. But every time it pops up, every time someone mentions Christmas or someone mentions family, you're reminded, oh God, yeah, that's coming. But it's not here yet. And then the week prior to whatever event this is, let's say it isn't need Christmas dinner, the week prior to that, you start feeling more and more anxious, because that is when this event comes over the horizon and your first mate can see it and can't avoid it anymore. And your captain is still saying, look, it's just a dinner. It's only 3 hours. We're going to be fine. We're going to be just fine. You sure? Because I don't. And what if I don't like the food? What? Now, what if the deckhand doesn't like the food, or it doesn't taste good, or I don't want to eat it, or people are going to look weird at me? And yes, there's also your deckhand. But your deckhand, your primitive reptilian brain, only really understands the here and now. They don't have much of a horizon. So until the moment you're sitting at that dinner table, your deckhand isn't responding to what's going on. What they do respond to is the stress of your first mate, and maybe the stress of your captain. When they're stressed out, your deckhand notices. So where normally they are, lying calmly, doing their thing, and now all of a sudden there is this stress. And they become alert. What's going on? This is not good. You become tense, physically tense. You get moments where the anxiety rises because your first mate remembers, that's the dinner. Oh, that Aunt Agatha is also coming. Oh God, I hate her. I can't stand her. How am I going to survive that? And that moment, that realization, that's when your deckhand responds with, danger, 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 where is it? Where is it? But your Aunt Agatha isn't here yet, so your deckhand remains poised, tense. Where is it? Where's the danger? Where's the danger? And remains tense that way until the moment it actually happens, because they are expecting a danger to manifest right here, right now. Not 3 days from now, because deckhands don't think that way. So this is how tension, anticipation, the bad kind of anticipation, builds up towards the event. Your first mate is thinking all kinds of doom what-ifs. Your captain is running out of ways to convince the first mate that it's really not going to be that bad. And your deckhand responds to this stress with their own survival instinct to fight or flee. But because there is no immediate threat, Aunt Agatha isn't here yet, there is no threat to respond to. So instead, it's not freezing. They just sit tight and wait until the moment when they know what action they need to take. And that moment won't come until the day itself. You arrive at your parents' house and you take place at that dinner table for Christmas dinner. And that's when things get interesting, because now the threat is here. And now your crew starts responding in different ways, because now it's no longer a hypothetical situation. Now it's actually happening here and now, and we always respond a little differently in the moment than we ever anticipate that we will. So when things go wrong, that's because your first mate is all worked up. They haven't come to that point of, oh yeah, okay, nice to see you. Oh yeah, I'm safe here in this environment. This is good. This is, yeah, I like it. Oh, how have you been? How are you? Lightening up. When that doesn't happen, or doesn't happen enough, your first mate will respond very quickly to anything someone says that triggers you. Someone makes a remark, politics and religion will always do the trick. Someone makes a remark like that, and your first mate, junk! I don't like that. I don't want that. Your deckhand, who is now in what he's being told is a dangerous situation, is already sitting at that dinner table. Food looks good, but I'm not sure if I'm going to eat that. Not sure if I'm hungry. Some deckhands eat when they're hungry, but some don't. So let's say this is your response. Your first mate, I don't like this. Bah! Says your deckhand, because now there is a threat. There, across the table. That is the threat. That is the danger that's coming from. And now you can fight or flee. And if your primary instinct is to fight, you'll explode. You'll get angry. And in that fire, well, the other person, that other ship, if you're a ship and your deckhand fires the cannons, that other ship suddenly sees a barrage of cannonballs coming their way. Their deckhand sees that they are under threat and they respond with, bah! Or if you or the person across from you is more of a flee type of person, we all tend to have a preference for fighting or fleeing, you'll shut down, not say anything. If you can, go up, go to the bathroom, run away. You want to leave. You have this driving urge to leave the house, leave the party, not come back. That can be a split second and then it dissipates again, or it can stay with you for the rest of the evening, which is a horrible feeling. And a lot of stress comes from that. Stressed out as you already are, the chance that someone else will say something that triggers you yet again is getting exponentially larger as this happens, because now your entire crew is convinced this is a hostile situation. Mind you, I'm not saying it's not a hostile situation. There may well be people at that table who are toxic to you. That is entirely possible. It may also be possible that they are not necessarily intentionally toxic, but they're just incredibly inconsiderate. That's also a possibility. To your crew and to your stress level, that makes very little difference. You are now in a situation that you experience as hostile. And that is going to give you a lot of stress. And the longer that situation lasts, the worse it's going to get for you, because chances are the rest of the people around you won't even notice, except for the fact that you seem to be a bit on edge. People are not that observant. So what can you do to make this whole situation much more manageable for yourself? Both the anticipation going to that party, or when you're there, how do you avoid things going wrong without downplaying yourself? There are various tips and tricks. Pick the ones that sound good to you, that sound feasible to you, and that you like, that you want to try out. Because this can also be a game, trying out. If you have to go to that party anyway, you might as well give this a shot. So, without further ado, here are the tips and tricks. First off, in anticipation. Your first mate is bouncing all over the place because they are going to be entering a situation that they aren't sure is safe. What you can do to calm yourself in the anticipation is, yes, you can cancel. You can simply call your parents, in this case, who are hosting the party, and tell them, look, I'm not coming. Yes, they will be asking for a reason. You don't have to give one. You don't have to tell them why you don't want to come, if that is a step too far. You do want to go, but how do you keep it manageable for yourself? Well, one way is to limit the time that you will be spending there, and to let the host know in advance that you will be coming at 6 and you will be spending time there for dinner, but at 9 o'clock you really need to go. Again, you don't need to explain why. Just say that that works best for your schedule and leave it at that. Any excuse you give, they will come with solutions. And that's not what you want. You simply want to say, this is it. I'm not coming. Don't care what kind of solutions you come up with, because you're perfectly capable of coming up with those solutions if that was the problem. But that isn't the problem. The problem is that you simply don't want to go. Or at least you don't want to go any more than between 6 and 9. That is one way of doing it. And keeping the reason why very level. Don't give them anything that they can grasp to convince you otherwise. And depending on what kind of type the host or hostess is, they can be very persistent in that. Simply repeating, no, I'm arriving at 6, I'm leaving at 9. Or whatever times work best for you. This is, of course, just an example. That way, you know in advance, and you can tell your first mate in advance, it's just going to be those 3 hours. So the moment you arrive, your first mate and your deckhand, even though they are horrible at reading clocks, they know that the time they will be spending in this environment is limited. And the boundary of when you are leaving, the moment you will be leaving, that has been set by your captain. And they can trust your captain to keep track of time and to say, it's 9 o'clock, time to leave. And if it turns out that at 9 o'clock, actually you're having a very good time and it turns out to be okay, and you don't really want to leave, because our first mates are like that as well. I'm having such a good time. I'm enjoying myself. What do you mean it's time to leave? I don't want to leave yet. We said 9 o'clock. We're leaving 9 o'clock. But no. I'm having a good time. I want to stay a bit longer. I want to stay up late. That is actually what they're saying. And at that point, you can still decide to stay a bit longer if that is what you really want and if that's what you feel comfortable with. But going into the situation, you know when it ends. And that clarity, that certainty gives your captain, your first mate and your deckhand a firm belief that this is a limited time and therefore the danger is limited. And that reduces the anxiety. It's just going to be those 3 hours. There's different ways you can go about this. You can also limit it to a specific activity. For example, if your family is spending an entire weekend together, you don't feel like that. You say, okay, look, I'm coming over for, I don't know, the barbecue out by the cabin. I'm coming out to the cabin for the barbecue that evening and I'm leaving again. I'm not staying the night. I'm not coming hiking. I'm not going to whatever it is that you plan to do. Just that bit. So limit the time that you'll be spending and limit it in a way that is comfortable for you. That will also be much easier to communicate with the other person, with the hosts and the other guests. Because when you feel comfortable with the limits that you've set, you sound much more confident when you tell them, nope, this is my boundary, I'm off. Depending on how far you have to travel on the day itself to get to where you're going to be having this celebration, bring something warm to drink with you. Tea, coffee, hot chocolate, they work wonders. In one of the psychotrivia videos, I explained that a warm belly will calm your deckhand. And because the nearer you come to the moment where you enter this dangerous situation, the more stressed out your deckhand's going to be. So by having warm drinks, you calm them down a bit, and that will ease your nausea. It will ease most of the stress symptoms that you experience. Not all of them, but a lot of them will at least be reduced to a more manageable level. Now, when you arrive at the party, that is when the dynamics start shifting, because now it's no longer a make-believe situation. This is reality. This is the house you're entering. This is the dining room you're entering. These are the people that you will be spending time with. How to navigate that? There's some ways, several tactics that you can use to make that easier for yourself. Find out which one works best for you. The first is to have your captain be the front for the day. And that means essentially that when you're talking to people, you are just sticking on a rational, civil level. A captain is very well capable of mimicking the pleasantries and the social graces of the first mate. The first mate is the social empathic part of the ship, but the captain can mimic that behavior very well. You'll notice perhaps that your way of speaking is a bit different, but the people you're talking to will not notice that. What makes it easy to put your captain forward and leave your first mate and deckhand essentially cowering behind the captain, which is perfectly okay, is that a captain is far less likely to be emotionally triggered. So when someone says something hurtful, you are much more likely to address a factual fallacy in this statement rather than take personal offense. This is a tactic that works very well, especially when it's not necessarily a family gathering, but when there's more people around you that you don't know very well. This is the front that people put up at business parties. And when you have the Christmas drinks at work with a lot of colleagues that you don't know and you don't care and you certainly don't want to see drunk, this is the part of people that you tend to see until they have too much to drink, and that's when the first mate comes out. So that is one way to deal with the situation, to approach the people around you, to have your captain speak for you. That keeps your first mate and your deckhand literally out of sight and out of reach of other ships, of other crews, the other people and their remarks and the things that they do and they say. But not everyone has a captain who likes or is able to take the front like that. For a lot of people, the first mate is actually the primary and most front and center visual crew member. And that is okay too. But they'll be nervous. So how do you handle that? Well, the first thing is that the first mate knows that they're nervous, knows that that's okay, because when they realize that, they have a bit more of an ability to, when someone says something nasty, to say, what, did you actually say that? You can't mean that. You can't be meaning that. That's hurtful. Then it's no longer about exactly what they said, but rather the fact that the remark was hurtful. That puts a distance, an emotional distance between what's been said and how you perceive it. Because if a first mate doesn't put that distance in, well, the words of someone else, in something that someone says to you, then their first response may be, "What are you saying about me?" And that is the point where your deckhand says, who's already really, really tense and just looking for someone, either somewhere to run or someone to tear open. The moment your first mate is shocked like that and cowers, that is the point where your deckhand steps in and starts, "Yeah, you can't say that, you can't say that, you can't do that, how are..." And that what happens is a deckhand throws a tantrum. Yes, toddler tantrums are also deckhands, angry deckhands. They yell. They have a very different tone of voice, different way of speaking, different way of intonation. You will hear that. When someone else talks to you like that, you will know that that's their deckhand speaking. That means that they are feeling threatened too, otherwise they wouldn't respond like that. So when you notice that kind of fire, that's your deckhand. And the moment they step in, they will go off on a tangent because they don't care about social niceties. They don't care about being civil, and they certainly, living in the here and now as they do not care about the repercussions further down the evening or even further down the line in a relationship with your family. They don't care. They're just angry and they're going for it. That is the situation that you want to avoid. So if your first mate can find ways to not feel threatened the instant someone says something, or not feel threatened the instant someone enters the room, when they feel a bit more relaxed, then that makes a lot of difference. Then your deckhand won't come out as quickly. And that also means that your deckhand won't trigger anyone else's deckhand and start a shouting match. That sounds maybe a bit too difficult, because this kind of emotional filtering of what people say and do, that takes some practice. If you're not very good at that, have your first mate and your deckhand work together. Because before the deckhand explodes, there is also the option to evade. And that's not the same as the flee response. The flee response is no holds barred, out the window. But when your first mate feels uncomfortable, and essentially this is where you admit to yourself, I feel uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be clear to you yourself what you're uncomfortable with. It helps if you do, but you don't have to know. I feel uncomfortable right now. Not sure what it is, but I'd like to get out of this situation. You can whisper that to yourself, you can say it in your mind, and because your brains know everything about you. So the moment you formulate that desire, listen to what your body will do, because your body, your deckhand, will get up and go to the bathroom. No place where you're secluded, where everything is simple and straightforward. A place where you're alone, where the door can lock. A place where you're safe, at least for the moment. You may find that you, if there's children, that you start playing with the children. You focus your attention on the kids, especially younger kids under the age of 10. They are all deckhand and first mate, and especially between the age of 4 and 10, they are all first mate, and they love playing. So it's much easier for your anxious first mate to find a safe place with them. Even if you don't really like kids, there will be some kind of connection you can make with them. And that's socially perfectly acceptable. You've created a safe space for yourself, and no one minds. You can also retreat by playing something on your phone. checking your messages. It doesn't have to be actual messages that you're checking, but just focusing on that screen helps you to tune out the rest of your environment and find a little fun, because especially when you're playing games, that's fun, a little space in yourself, for yourself to feel safe. When people start remarking that you're on your phone all the time, remind them that it's no different from people going out for a smoke, or going out to take the dog for a walk, or going out for, some fresh air. Especially when you're in a party with a lot of people, go sit in a corner and observe. That's also a way to seclude yourself for a bit, find some peace and quiet, but also to see how do other people cope with being in this environment, because they are essentially in the same boat that you are. You'll find that some people go into the kitchen, maybe help the hostess preparing the next batch of things. Maybe some indeed go for a walk. Someone goes walk the dog and a couple of people go with them. Maybe someone says, we're out of whatever, and they go to the nearest 7-Eleven to see if they can still buy that. These are all small ways where people escape the situation, where they take a breather from that environment. So it's not strange that you want to take a breather from that. Everyone does that. It's just that we don't realize how subtle it sometimes is, the way that we do this. And when push comes to shove and things do run off the track, and you feel your deckhand building up the energy to leap forward or get angry, or you want to run, picture your crew. Even in that split second, if you have just a vague image of these three figures, picture them and adjust the image. This is a story of one of my Christmas dinners that went completely wrong, where actually no one but my husband realized how wrong it had gone. We were sitting at the dinner table and the topic of conversation took a heavy turn. A couple of weeks prior, a cousin of my husband had committed suicide, and completely unexpected to the family. And that was very, very painful for everyone. My husband's siblings simply did not understand how anyone could make that decision. How could anyone do that? And while they were discussing this with each other, my mother-in-law was trying to ease the situation, because she realized something that the other people at the table had forgotten. And that was that I had been suicidal for 15 years by that time. And I knew exactly why someone would do that. But no one asked me. And the kind of things that were hurled across that table, not even at me, because I was not even part of the conversation. I'd already withdrawn from the conversation. But I was still sitting at the table, and the things I heard hurt me so deeply that I felt my deckhand putting my hands on the table, ready to raise up and just throw everything across the table, just upturn everything in pure anger. And in a split second, I heard my first mate, who was hanging back already because this was not something he liked at all. I heard my first mate saying, "No, not in my mother-in-law's house, because she's trying." At that point, because my deckhand was rising, I felt my energy come up. I was ready to shout, and I could picture my captain grabbing my deckhand's shoulders, turning him a quarter, and pushing him towards the door. And indeed, what I did in that split second was, instead of yelling, because my first instinct is always to fight, in that instant I got up, but instead of upturning the table, I left the room. I stormed off and I hid somewhere where they wouldn't find me. Actually, it took my husband 45 minutes to find me because I was hidden so well elsewhere in the house. But that gave me the time to calm down. It gave me the time to, when my husband eventually found me, we talked about it because he'd been severely hurt by it as well. And he had explained to my in-laws why I had stormed off. And indeed, my mother-in-law already knew that was going on. But she wasn't in control of the conversation because there's so many people at a table like that. Energies get worked up. But when you know your crew, when you know yourself, know how you're likely to respond, and when you feel that you're getting triggered, know that you still have an option. You still have a choice of how you'll respond. And if you want to rip someone's throat out, but you still have that presence of mind to know that that's not the option, let's not do that, you still have that choice. Because when you have the clarity of thought to realize that, you have the clarity of thought to change your direction, to change your actions. You have a choice. You have control over yourself. And just knowing that can already give you extra confidence to a point that all these tips are like umbrellas. But that's a very strange twist. Have you ever noticed how when you bring an umbrella, it doesn't rain? When you don't bring an umbrella, chances are you're getting wet. All these tips, all these tricks are umbrellas. When you have them, when you know them, when you have prepared, okay, if this happens, I know I have recourse. I know I'm still in control of the situation. I know I can keep myself safe. Then it's very likely that your entire energy, the moment you arrive, is that much more relaxed that you're never going to need them that entire night, and you're just going to have a good, or at least a goodish time. That is what these tips are meant to do for you. It's not going to change your family. It's not going to change the idiots who make well-meant but completely off the mark remarks that hurt you. You can't always change that, but you can change your response to it. And now you know how these responses come into being, how the things go wrong, and what you can do to steer the situation. Chances are that you'll actually be able to have a relaxed time with your family. I hope you enjoyed this Spyglass. Let me know if you'd like me to do more of these longer videos. This is a bit of a tryout. Let me know what you think, and let me know how these tips and tricks help you during your holidays. For now, have fun, relax, enjoy yourself, and I'll see you next time.